Shout out Mom's Basement. That's where all of my YouTube started. And I never wanted to publicly say that at the time because I was like, I'm in my mom's basement shooting YouTube videos. But now I'm like, oh yeah.
You see success within 3 months. Did you then feel some sort of pressure?
I think the pressure hit later because at first it was exciting as hell.
Yeah.
I remember refreshing my phone and it was like up 3 more and then 4 more. And like as I'd refresh it, it just kept going. Every day, my first thought was like, what happened overnight? And it was like hundreds of subscribers came in and I was like, something is happening. All of that was super exciting because it was so fast. And then once that kind of slowed down, as it always does, I think that's when the pressure kind of set in. It's like, oh, I'm in a few months deep. What is this going to look like now?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 135 of the 505 podcast. Today, we're welcomed by Brady Bessette. We flew to Salt Lake City, Utah to get Brady on the pod, and we did our first pod outdoors.
It was a little cold.
A little bit chilly.
I'm a little bit warmer now.
Brady is so talented, though. I've learned so much from his YouTube channel. We go into all things YouTube, and we talk about how you can become a successful DP because he is on that path currently.
What I think is also so cool about him doing YouTube is he was telling us that like he's able to do YouTube to kind of fund and be a little bit more selective over the projects that he's taking on as a DP. And he was forced to kind of learn the business side of YouTube and being a creator. When he got his first brand deal, he was talking about just like excited that he was getting free stuff. But now he's going about it being like, okay, if I have to make a video for this brand, it's going to cost me my day rate and my editing rate. There's a whole business side to it. So it was really interesting to hear him break that down.
In this pod, we got super nerdy with lighting, cameras, and all of the things because he's someone that has actually helped me a ton on my journey with the lighting side of things. So it's fun to talk about that stuff. I don't want to hold you guys any longer. Let's get into episode 135. All right, Brady, give me the one-handed crack.
First one outside.
Here we go.
Wait. Okay, hold on. Brady.
Oh, you're right.
Braden?
I told him all the rules.
He didn't tell me the rules. If you're watching this, he didn't tell me anything.
I briefed him on everything before. I even gave an example.
Just don't put the finger
on the trigger before we start.
Trigger safety. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yes.
Nice.
Oh, no.
Let me see.
It's cold out.
Let me see.
No dents.
Oh, Brady.
There's maybe a little dent,
4.8.
Right? He's hiding a dent. No, but maybe he gets
I'm not hiding a dent. All right. Is there some sort of handicap for being 45 degrees outside right now?
Because that was like an 8.4.
Here we go. God. Oh, dude, I can't feel my index finger.
Terrible. Oh, my gosh.
The can is just falling apart.
That was one of the worst ones I've ever seen. Cheers, brother. Welcome to the show.
Hey, cheers. Thanks for having me.
I don't want to cheers you over there. That was brutal.
Dude, I don't want to cheers you.
It's one of the worst ones I've ever seen on the show. You spilled half the drink.
Dude, it's okay. Hold on. Check out my double dent.
I've got no dents. Mine is perfect.
This is the first pod we've ever done outside in the wilderness. We're braving the elements right now.
Yeah, it's me to blame. I'm sorry, guys.
No, I love this. I think this is going to be incredible. It's funny because we were yesterday just across the way with Johnny. Right across, which is awesome. And it got snow last night.
It means we're in a good place.
Yeah.
The snow kind of affected my can open, so I say we just run it back in the summer.
Lots of excuses coming out of the middle pocket of the pod.
Just taking heat first thing in the morning.
Dude, we got a nice like sun flare coming in.
It's beautiful.
It's nice. One of the videos, speaking of sun flares, is on YouTube. One of the first videos to blow you up was how to create your own sunset.
We're just getting into it. Yeah.
You like that?
Oh, I see that segue there.
So tell us about like how you come up with your video ideas and what that moment was like when you made that video. It got a ton of views and you started getting traction on your YouTube.
Yeah. So, I mean, the question of how I come up with my videos, it's usually stress on a Tuesday night. And I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do?
That's usually how we go about the podcast too.
Yeah. And it works.
Yeah.
So clearly it's tried and true. But back in the days, this is circa 4+ years ago when I put out that video, which is crazy how far it's come as it is. But that was a video out of boredom. And me kind of just, I've got nothing to do. I got nothing to shoot. I got a couple of lights and time to burn because it was right in the heat of COVID. So I was like, yeah, let me just try to, I have no idea where it came from. Because I wasn't like, I'm going to blow up on YouTube. It was just like, I'm bored. Let me shoot something so I can shoot something and teach whatever because when I was young, when I was like 12, 13 learning photography, I was like neck deep in YouTube. All of the greats at that point, just in like taking everything in all summer long. So I was like, I don't know everything, but at that point I'm gonna put out whatever I do know, So that's kind of what started it. And it was that video. And for some reason I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it once a week with my 304 subscribers at the most. And then there was that one, and then a night scene video after, and then a raining car video after. Like it was 3 sequential weeks. And it just, from there, I think all of those just came together and we're like, yeah, let's go. And they just all took off. And it was weird.
Flag on the play.
What's going on, Fig?
I gotta tell you, dude, Motion Array gave me a call and they're giving people $50 off.
You're kidding.
With a year subscription, they got everything you could ever want. Sound effects, music, stock footage, templates for your videos. And the best part is they're being updated constantly. You gotta go check them out. They're the very first link down in the description. Anything else to add?
No, but you got to just save some time and save some money.
That's what it's about, baby. Check out Motion Array, link down below. Let's get back to the pod. You were living at your parents' house, correct?
Hell yeah.
At the time.
Shout out Mom's Basement. That's where all of my YouTube started. And I never wanted to publicly say that at the time because I was like, I'm in my mom's basement shooting YouTube videos. But now I'm like, hell yeah. That's where it all started. All the stories, like Amazon and Google and Apple. I don't know if they started in their mom's basement. They probably didn't, but we'll say it.
Adds to the story.
It adds to the story.
It adds to the story.
Yeah, but check out the sweet sunset that I made, in the basement. I also, though, think, before you ask your question, Fig, you bring up a good point of like, it was out of boredom. And I feel like as creators, we're constantly stimulated, whether it's on social media or feeling like we constantly need to make that next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we need to allow ourselves to be bored to be able to have inspiration to strike.
Yeah, because the second we're not bored and we're just doing it all with a purpose is where it's like you get the first idea that comes.
Yeah.
If I'm bored and I got nothing to lose, which at that point was exactly the case, it was just, screw it, why not? If it looks good, great. If it doesn't, what's to lose?
Totally.
Were you nervous at all of what others thought, or were you just a guy who's like, I'm just going for this, I like this video?
I don't think so, because also a few years ago, or a few years before that, I had my vlog stage that nobody knows about. That was like, that's how I got my 304 subscribers, was vlogging. And I think that's where I got that kind of embarrassment out of the way. And I mean, I'd been out of school for long enough to where it's like, it's not like, what are my classmates wondering or whatever. I was just like, screw it, I'm just going to do it. Without, like, I didn't really care at that point. I think that the thought of it just being embarrassing kind of was, I think, burnt out by the time I was doing my vlogs, which who knows if I'll give you guys the files to play that right now. I probably won't.
Are they archived?
Are they what?
Are they archived?
I've got them. They're deeply archived.
But on YouTube, archived, but on the hard drives.
They could be found.
That's awesome. You see success within 3 months, like 3 videos back to back to back. Did you then feel some sort of pressure after seeing some success of being like, fuck, I got to maybe follow this up and take it more seriously? Or did you just have fun with it the whole time?
I think the pressure hit later because at first it was exciting as hell.
Yeah.
I remember I was telling you guys on the phone, I was refreshing my phone because I posted something in Reddit and it got a few views. I don't know if that attributed to it, that first video blowing up, but I remember I was refreshing my phone on YouTube, like the studio app, and it was like, up 3 more and then 4 more, and like as I'd refresh it, it just kept going. So I was like, what the hell is happening? So I remember I'd wake, like every day it would like wake me up. My first thought was like, what happened overnight? And it was like hundreds of subscribers came in and I was like, something is happening. So all of that was super exciting because it was so fast that I don't think I had time to be have pressure. I was just like, this is happening, so let's just ride the wave while it's here. And then once that kind of slowed down, as it always does, I think that's when the pressure kind of set in. It's like, oh, I'm in a few months deep. What is this going to look like now?
Because it happened so fast, did you feel like you had a connection with that group, or do you feel like it took time to kind of learn and understand, who the audience was that was finding these videos?
I think part of me had no idea because it wasn't the plan. Like I wasn't strategic with it. I wasn't trying to like read my target demographic. I was just putting this out and something worked. So I was like, all right, well, this works. So I could just, if I keep doing this, it'll probably keep working. So that's kind of what I did. And I'm still not like analytical with my audience now. I'm just like, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, whatever.
So you're not hard on yourself if something doesn't do well.
No, now I am.
Oh, now you are.
Now it kills me. But I think at that point, everything was doing good.
Yeah.
So everything was like 50K. And I was like, okay, well, this works. And now I'm like 5K. Shit. Okay.
It's fine. We posted a video yesterday and it really flopped and it's been eating me.
That's the worst feeling ever.
But it's okay. I think the vlog that we're making, I'm hoping, absolutely bangs. But How far into COVID was it that you started YouTube? And were you, I mean, everything was closed down, especially film sets. Like, how much were you DPing, if at all? And like, when did that kind of come back into your life?
Well, let's pull the curtain back a little bit.
Let's do it.
So to give context, this was first video was end of August of 2020.
Okay.
So about 6 months into shutdown and all that stuff. And where I was at, they were pretty strict on it. So not a lot was happening. But that didn't matter because Brady wasn't really on film sets as it was. And Brady was kind of a fraud about it all. And I definitely was doing the whole fake it till you make it thing. Because I knew stuff and I practiced stuff, but I wasn't really on bigger sets. Whatever sets I was on was either, you know, a 3-man crew where I'm doing everything, or things that I made on my own. So that's kind of where I was at. So it kind of led to like, well, I didn't have a ton of work anyway, pre-COVID. Now I definitely don't have work. Let me just, I guess part of it was like teach people, but also teach myself through teaching. So that's kind of what led to that. It's like, I was just like, we'll just do it because I want to do it, but I've got no other way.
Yeah.
There's also, I feel like, that period of time though, that wherever you're at on the line, there's a huge group that's not to where you're at on the line.
Mm-hmm.
So you make that first sunset video thinking like, oh, maybe I'm not deeping these crazy things, but then maybe this huge group doesn't know how to make said thing that you made. And then and you're teaching yourself kinda along that road, you know?
Yeah. There's definitely, because I knew that I wasn't anything good, but I knew that I had something that would help somebody that was, you know, learning what I wanted to learn a year prior or whatever. But then there were also the videos where in my head, I was like, this is a great concept. And then I pull the camera out and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? It's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I'd find myself like camera set up, researching on YouTube how to do this thing, learning it right there, trying it, and then reteaching it in the way that worked for me.
It's a great way to practice though.
It's a great way to practice. And that combined with forcing myself to do it every single week, I don't think I missed a week of a video for 2 years.
Wow.
From that first sunset video, I didn't miss. I might have missed maybe one, which now I'm a lot less disciplined for like mental health sake of like not driving myself crazy. But that forced me to like every single week, if I didn't know something, I had to know something and I had to learn something new. And that was, I think that helped me learn a lot more and branch out a lot more in the DP space.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the meme, that motherfucker don't miss.
Denzel.
Yeah. Ironically, did then posting videos of, you know, of DPing and about filmmaking, did that ironically lead to you then getting jobs as a DP?
Yeah, I think
yeah.
that there was a point where I was like, I can use this to leverage my resources essentially, because I think that resources are a big thing in now, I guess in the industry now. It's like if you own stuff and you have gear, inevitably it does set you a little bit further, because it's like you don't have to go rent stuff or whatever. If it's like Brady's got stuff and this guy doesn't, let's go to Brady. So I was like, okay, this is a great ladder that I can use to like, one, educate myself, but two, like I can get gear from either brand deals or people graciously sending stuff out to me, whatever, and then use that to practice. And then I get a little bit more, and then it kind of gets me, I guess, elevating my craft a little bit more as far as like the gear that I'm using.
What was that first piece of gear that you were able to leverage your YouTube video to then get free gear?
I remember, what was it? I think the first free thing I ever got was a microphone from a company called Comica. And it was them, and then I think Hollyland right after, to where both of them, I was like, I didn't really know that people got free stuff on YouTube, but they messaged me. And it's always like these kind of like third-party people that reach out to you. So I was like, this has got to be spam. And I like made them go to their like actual page and DM me for the actual page to prove that it was real, because I didn't believe it. I was like, nobody's going to send me shit.
Send me a selfie with your name written on a
That's
piece of
pretty
paper.
much, I was one step short of that. Hold up 3 fingers and the product, and then yeah, you can send it to me.
Like, I need to make sure I'm not getting catfished.
So I was like making them beg me to be able to send me free stuff. It was a funny time.
So did that kind of open up your eyes to being like, oh, if they're willing to send me stuff, I'm sure other companies and brands will also send me stuff.
I started to realize, because I'm not business minded at all. Like I just want to make shit. And that's just kind of the way that I've always been, is creative and not entrepreneurial. But it forces you when starting a YouTube channel to learn the business aspect of it, especially if you're doing it full time. That takes up almost your 9 to 5 schedule. Like you're doing stuff nonstop. So being able to learn the entrepreneurial side of things, like brand deals and stuff like that, is really important, because it's like, if this is taking up all of my time, it's my job at this point. So that was a weird shift of like, oh, I'm not just making stuff and just like doing it when it's fun. Like I need to take it the next step. And I think that probably a few months in is when I started to realize like, oh, I've got to like, I can't just be a yes man and be like, yeah, give me stuff and I'll make you a bunch of stuff. That's when it kind of changed. It's like, if they're giving me product, I need to then make a whole video and make a whole production.
So when you're getting these brand deals, what do you feel like you learned from the business side of things that you could save someone the pain and headache on, that you might have had to learn the hard way when you were starting out?
I'd say don't be a yes man, because that's what I was. Like anything that I got for free, I was like, hell yeah, this is great. But then I found myself with like this surplus of stuff where everybody wants something of you. I think that it's kind of this unspoken thing, is like nothing is actually free. Even if they're giving you a light or a camera or a mic or whatever it is, you're expected, unless it's written in writing, 0 strings attached, but still even then, that you're expected to give them something in return. And then the way I think of it is like, if I'm shooting a whole video, I try to think of it as, what is my day rate as a DP? And then if I'm editing it, what would my day editing rate be as well? So it's kind of taking all these costs into account, because I'm essentially making a production.
Yeah,
so,
and you can't work on your other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So they're taken away from it. So it's like, oh, if you're going to make me make a video for a whole day and edit it for a whole day, you're essentially paying for that, plus the likeness of being able to put it
and on the YouTube. Yeah.
So it's definitely a complex thing that it took me, I think, a couple of years to like, I think learning to know your worth is really important. And I hate saying that because it almost sounds like conceited in a way, but it's like brands are paying to put their product in front of thousands of people or whoever. So that's a whole other thing, and on top of the DP or like the hourly day rates to think about.
I think it's less conceited or fucked up on your part and more fucked up on the brands for thinking that they can just send you free shit and get thousands of dollars of free exposure and amazing content just in exchange for their product.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because you see the brands, and I won't name drop or anything, but there's brands who are just like, I'm giving them a $200 thing. They're not going to make me something for free. And then there's the people that I love that reach out. Here's the product. Here's the rate. Here you go.
Are you interested in it? Yeah.
And it gets straight to the point, instead of just trying to do this whole runaround of like, no, I won't have your $200 product that I won't use to make a whole video. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it takes so much time to make a YouTube video. People don't realize that, dude.
I hate it. Sometimes I wonder why I do it, because every week, my girlfriend hears the brunt of it. She's like, I'll be editing at like 3 a.m. and I'm like, dude, I fucking hate YouTube. Every week. I hate making thumbnails. I hate editing, whatever. But I love it. I don't actually hate
Have you thought about outsourcing any of that?
I do for some of it, but it's a tough balance of budget things that I'm learning, because I've got an editor. He's absolutely amazing. Andre, he's actually the guy who brought me into the film space like years and years ago. I was a PA on a doc with him. And I was like, what the fuck is a C-stand? So now it's come quite a long way, because Andre's been awesome for helping, but it's like not every video can I afford to have sent out and edited. So it's almost balancing the load.
Yeah, you're being a producer, you're being a DP.
Being too much.
Yeah, simultaneously being an editor.
Yeah.
What's the process like for coming up with these YouTube videos on a weekly basis? Is it you're sitting there bored and it's what pops into the mind, or do you have like a bank on your phone of random things that hit you that you kind of pull from?
It's not what it should be. I'll say, like, I've got other YouTube friends who are like, my next 6 months are planned out with scripts. And I'm like, shit, my next week is a thought in my head. But I mean, I've got like a Trello app where I'll just like brain dump. I'll be like, oh, like one light, like whatever, blah, blah, blah. Put it in there with a little note to come back to. But then I'll script like when I'm setting up. I'll be like, yeah, I know the concept, but it's nice for like, I think lighting in particular, because lighting is like a big chunk of my channel. It's kind of like I'm reciting what I see and know and have done. So it's not hard to script. It's more of like making the educational bullet points when I'm going education, which is honestly pretty simple. It's when I want to make something that's a little bit more story driven is where it like burns me out. Yeah. Then I've got to write a whole story, and I'm not a writer. I'm a DP. So that's the hard part. But yeah, I definitely, I'll take a lot of inspiration for, like, say I'm looking through work or I see a commercial or whatever. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I'm like, oh wait, he did that. And I'm just breaking it down to learn in my head. But then I'm like, oh wait, let me repurpose that.
Yeah.
And take this as a technique, and kind of repurpose it that way.
We filmed a video recently, and it was scripted to like the T. And then I found myself, it took us way longer to film because I was trying to stick to the script like word for word. And I think your process of like having bullet points to hit, but you're like, I know when I am filming, like I know what I want to say. Having those bullet points, I think, is a better way to go about it, as opposed to having like word for word the script.
Dude, welcome to the first year of Brady's YouTube. When I tell you like the amount of sweaty ass summer days sitting with a softbox in my face, trying to read a script over and over again, just pissed off. And then I'll like try to like get back to composition.
Yeah.
Like I then realized that I was like, that's not the way to do it, because I look back at those first year videos and I'm just like a robot.
Yeah.
Like I'm just talking about whatever, and I had no on-screen personality, which is something that comes with it. I mean, it's intimidating from anybody, especially not being in the film space, to have cameras right in your face. It's so foreign. So it's tough to kind of learn that. But scripting is one of the things that definitely makes it a little bit more difficult.
I feel like it takes a good year of like talking to the camera.
Oh, more than
getting
that.
Into the,
like,
I mean, for me and Brady, probably a few months, but you maybe a few years.
I'm a natural. It took me like a week and a half.
I'm still.
I'm kidding.
I have my whole script right here, word for word of how I want the podcast to go.
Yeah, dude, I had to read lines in order to get on this podcast. Like, there's 60 pages.
Don't
Don't
tell them about it. We're trying to keep it a secret for the
Do
new
I look
people.
natural?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you're crushing it. Okay. No, sorry, you were gonna ask a question.
Thank you for respecting that. What gear do you use now to bring to a set for DP work versus for like a YouTube video? And I know it could change. Every set could change, but like, what is in the core arsenal of what you like to bring?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually.
That was off script.
Thanks.
Way to be, you know.
No, he read that page 34. He's bouncing back and forth to throw you off.
Yeah.
So we'll start with DP stuff.
Okay.
DP stuff, it's always kind of different, but I like to think that I've grown in the last 4 years of YouTube, and people have seen that, and I've seen that. So the gear that I bring is always growing to be larger, but it's weird because I also am not bringing my own gear a lot to like formal productions. Like I'm going to Texas next week. I'm not bringing a thing. I'm just going to show up and everything is there because we rent cameras, we rent the Alexa, we rent lighting and stuff like that. So that's what's different about like bigger DP jobs as a DP. I'm doing one-man band stuff a lot where I bring my kit of my lights, and I own a Sony FX6, which is probably my A camera for my own productions. But it's as the productions get bigger, your gear load actually gets lower, because I know so many DPs that are just amazing decade-plus-year-old DPs who don't own anything except for like a freaking film camera.
Wow.
So that was something that was kind of a learning curve. I was like, oh wait, I don't need to own all of this gear. But it's also tricky because then on the back end of that, I have my YouTube channel where I need to have my own stuff every single week.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I've got I want to get rid of all my shit right now. I've got so many lights and cameras and stuff that I don't even use and need. Where
We'll
I'm just
take
like,
them.
Perfect.
Call
Stop
us.
over afterwards. Yeah.
Call
Yeah,
us.
we can do that. Just open my garage and I'll walk away.
Perfect.
So you're trying to be a little bit more lean, you think?
Oh yeah, because my YouTube productions are just scrappy as hell now. I'm like, when I first started my talking heads, I'd set up my Blackmagic Pocket 4K with a focus motor and a second monitor, and I had a boom mic coming down to right here, and I had lighting polished off. And now I've got my fucking Sony A7 IV with a little plug-in mic that everybody in the comments hates me for having like a dead cat right here. I love it. But I'm just like, yeah, this looks good enough. I'm like, sure, yeah, run it. I'm like, I don't care, it's YouTube. So it's funny that that's changed, but I think that that's because I've had a shift of like, in the beginning of my YouTube, I was like, nobody gives a shit about me. I'm just a random guy. I have zero credibility, so I need to prove myself to the viewer the second that they get to my channel. I think that that's something that I did well when I first started. It was like, it's got to look good, sound good, and get straight to the point. Otherwise, they don't care. They're on to the next guy, which was interesting for me because it kind of helped me then, but then hurt me in a sense of like Brady's personality wasn't at all in the YouTube channel. So I think the last 2 years have been a transition of like, dude, chill out, just be you and still provide some sort of something when they come onto the channel. And that's all it needs. So that's why I've gotten a lot scrappier. Just saves time. It's quicker. It's less stress doing it all alone. So now it's like we were just talking about the ZV-E1. I'm like, my FX3 is too big for YouTube now. I want to go smaller. So it's definitely, it's always changing, but yeah, I think it's getting more minimal and simple.
I just think your process is always changing. Like you never have it 100% figured out. And when you do, something new comes out,
Yeah.
or like you talk to somebody else and you figure out a new way to do something, you're like, I think I'm gonna change stuff up.
Yeah.
Could I ask you a DP question? When
No.
you're lighting a space, do you like to go with a softbox, or do you prefer now to bounce it or shoot it through something?
I freaking hate softboxes.
You hate softboxes?
I hate softboxes. I never use a softbox.
Okay, so do you like to shoot it through a diffusion or bounce it? What's the situation?
Quality-wise, if I want the softest light, everything is different because you always want a different look. And I realized at some point, not to backtrack and rabbit trail, but getting the most soft, beautiful light every single time isn't actually the move. That's a whole other can of worms we can break into. But it was getting back to that question of like how I'm going to, I guess, modify it per se. I like to either cut through a rag, like diffuse through some sort of like 4x frame or whatever, or bounce. Bounce is my preferred because it just looks beautiful off of Muzz. But from a control standpoint, it's a lot harder to control. You can't just throw a grid on the front of your softbox or your diffusion rag.
You just shoot it at somebody.
Yeah, you've got to like control where that, because essentially if you shoot a light into something, it's going a lot wider of a space.
Room.
It's everywhere. And then you got to think like, oh, if it's bouncing this way, now it's off the ceiling too. So it's coming from above and filling it in weird ways. So it's just a question of control, and also a question of what do I want. Sometimes I've been shooting a lot with like hard light because I freaking love it. I used to hate it.
Could you explain to them what hard light is for someone who might not know?
Yeah, look at the sun. Like, what we're dealing with right now is hard light.
I just got it right in my face. I'm
Yeah.
also so nervous that there's just a fat flare on the.
No, both of the lenses are dark, so we're good. I've been monitoring.
My man.
Aware of
Dude,
it.
DP always notices changing light.
Okay.
Always.
Question. I feel like someone might hear DP, aka me, recently learned this, but you hear DP and you're like, this guy films, all he has to worry about is composition and how it looks. But that's not really the case. I feel like you have to know a lot about lighting as well.
There's a lot that kind of, and I feel like DP and DOP and cinematographer get bounced around. To me, they're the same thing. Some people might hate on that, whatever. But I mean, the role of we'll call it cinematographer is large. There's a lot of things that go onto it, and that's what I've learned as like I scale into bigger productions. The cinematographer isn't just like you showing up with the camera and getting cool shots. Now I'm like head of my department, and it's like this film in Texas. It's like, who do I want as my gaffer? Who's like, and I'm hiring on people. I'm the head of that. So it's like I'm in charge of bringing on my lighting team. Who's my camera team? Are they people that I trust? So you're almost just like the boss of this department on top of the creative vision. So it's like I as a DP, I'm working with the director to translate what story they want to say and into a visual image, essentially. So it's like with that comes, oh, well, I need people to light it. Hire those people. I need people to run camera for me. Like I'm not hiring them, but it's like the producer and all that stuff. Bring on those people. And then it's like, oh shit, what do I want this to look like? Then it's like composition, your camera choice, your lens choice, your lighting choice. All of those play a role into it because especially with lens, that's a great expressive way to tell the story. Through your lens choice. So it's like deciding all of those factors is part of the process. It's not just showing up with your one camera, like say you just own a red Komodo with your one lens. It's like there's a lot to break down to it.
Can we get into that?
Yeah, what are you bringing to Texas? What's the lens choice?
And what affects like
fun.
what affects your lens choice? Like, can you go into like you would use this lens to achieve this look and this lens to achieve this look?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that this is a very stylistic drama, we could call it. I'm not going to break into the story, but in a sense of like those movies that have the beautiful dark contrast and stuff like that, it's a very emotional story at points, and it's kind of an impactful story. So with that, I don't want just like a clean, sharp lens like a Sony G Master. I'm like, there's a lot of character and emotion going on in that. So I think I want that to resonate in my lens choice. And it's the thing of like viewers don't, especially viewers that aren't in film, they're not going to look at it and be like, oh, they use soft lenses or whatever. But it is just kind of like this subconscious thing of like a feeling that resonates through. And that's what's so beautiful about like Hollywood film is like everything is intentional. But for this one, I'm using honestly gorgeous lenses. They're called Blackwings from a company called Tribe 7. They're way too expensive.
They're
renting them.
Oh god, they're so expensive.
Freaking, I don't know what they
These
are.
are the real deal.
Yeah, real deal. Like 150,000 for the set. I don't know.
Isn't that crazy that glass can cost that much money?
It's stupid.
It's insane.
I've put glass on my cheap cameras, like $2,000 camera with like $50,000 glass. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. But I guess like if you go to the gym and you work out your upper body and you put it on cheap little legs.
Braden.
I'm not doing that.
I was watching the video actually yesterday.
Which one?
I don't know. You were talking about the gym one. We weren't talking about the content creating one, or the yeah. We don't need to get into it unless you want to. So
Talking about how Braden got chicken legs. Just kidding.
No. I didn't get to
Kosis
that
doesn't
part.
hit the gym. It's fine. Let's.
Neither do I.
Carry on.
It's 2-on-1. Anyway, with this, they're beautiful lenses, but in a sense of like, they've got a lot of like the bokeh isn't clinically perfect, or like the out of focus regions and stuff like that. So it just has a lot of character that renders the way that I think matches the story that we're going after. And then like say camera choice as well. We were like, what camera do we want to shoot on? So we ended up with the Alexa Mini LF because one, it's freaking awesome. But two, we were like, we're shooting in a lot of small rooms. That's got a large sensor. So it'll make the world feel bigger, and we're not limited to really tight lenses on like a Super 35. And it just makes it feel like a larger than life kind of feeling. So there's a lot of thought. It's like when people say, what's your go-to camera? It's like,
Depends.
probably Mini LF because it looks good, but not for that only reason. There's kind of thoughts that go into it. Like if we didn't need a large format camera, we could have shot Super 35, but it was just a stylistic choice.
How do you decide when to try something new? Like you've been able to
Probably
try.
at the most inappropriate times ever.
It's like never used this camera before. Let's rip
Like,
it.
let's rip it
Yeah,
today.
let's go. I think that I'm always trying to try something new, but not stupidly. Like I don't want to like destroy the whole film, but I think that I'm always trying to do something a little bit out of my comfort zone or a little bit foreign, just because it keeps pushing you up that ladder.
And would you recommend if someone wants to try like new lenses or a new camera, like just go out and rent it for the weekend and go shoot something?
Yeah, I'd say that I've done that a lot. Maybe not with Black Wings, but funny enough, Mitch, Film Lab, their whole
Yeah.
team, they had them like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
They just rented them out for a project. So I was like, hey, can I play with these for a minute? Just because I had this Texas idea in mind. I was like, I want to see if I like them. And of course, I freaking loved them. So I was like, yeah, that's great. So yeah, that was my lens test of like, I think that just don't show up to set. Like
Yeah.
that's what the glory of like prep days, for example, are. Like you can just test everything then and just get some of those jitters out and like realize that there's problems or it might not work.
So explain to us prep days.
Prep days. Prep days are fun. Pretty much you've got like camera prep, you've got pre-light days, whatever. But prep day is like the day to build out your entire camera with camera team and make sure that it all works and make sure that the gear works as well, because you could have bad cables, you could have bad transmitters, whatever. You get everything built out, camera ready for a day of production, so you just know that all the kinks are ironed out. And then prep day, as far as like pre-light goes, we just did that a couple weeks ago in a project in Montana, and it's like I'm walking through with my director to figure out the exact blocking. Like, let's lock this in where our character is going to be, and then walk through with my lighting team. This is what I want. Let's get us there like 80% of the way. And then that way you're not like 7 a.m. panicked day of, like we usually are, just trying to light everything and get camera built out and all of that.
And when you're telling your lighting team, I want it to look like this, are you pulling from references?
I try to be as descriptive as possible. Every project is a little bit different, but I'll either pull references a lot of the times just to like say this is the language in the world that we're living in. Other times I'll also make like lighting charts of like I'll make like a top down, and it's like this light coming through this window, this light inside bouncing, whatever, just to give an idea. And it's kind of like this is subject to change, but this is so you at least have a base point to start from.
And you've been doing it long enough to where you can build out that lighting scene being like, I have a general good idea of how this is going to look.
Yeah, I think that it's funny. Theory and reality are two totally different things. And there's sometimes, like I had a project a few months ago where I put out a lighting schematic and it was exactly what we did when we hit record, which I was like, oh shit, okay. Pat myself on my back.
I'm that guy.
Yeah, I'm that guy. I was like, this is the first time ever. Because normally, there's things that you run into, whether it's a reflection or a shadow or light, or it just doesn't wrap how you want it to, or whatever. There's a lot of things, but at least it gets you there. So you're like, oh, well, I at least know that this light out the window means like we want sunlight coming through and that's how we want it to look. So it at least gets you like 2 steps ahead.
What's the first thing you're thinking about when you're brought on to DP something? Like they give you the brief. Where's your head go? Is it lens choice? Is it camera?
I think story.
Okay.
Of how do I actually want this to look? Like what do I envision in my head when I'm reading the script, and kind of walk it through that way. Sometimes directors have like an actual shot list that they want to kind of abide by, or at least start from. Like this Texas one, he kind of had that, but I was like, okay, I think this would feel better if we did the shot like this. And then once you kind of know an idea for like this look and feeling, not like every single shot, but like at least I want it to look and feel like this, or I want kind of language of like shots that are wide or fast moving or handheld or whatever, then you start to break into like, okay, well, what's the camera going to look like? What's the lens going to look like? How do we want this to light? How big or small? Like, what are the locations like? So it's kind of like, go with the art first. What do I see on like the canvas? And then how do I get the canvas there is the next step.
Are you charging them for pre-production on these DP jobs? Or?
No, I think that a lot of the times people like say you should. I don't, because I like to be over prepared. I'll do a tech scout and I'll go to location for free just because it makes my life easier. I'll go through the meetings and stuff. I've been on dozens of meetings already for this because it helps. Like if we're just like, let's decide this all at 8 a.m. on day up, like you're doomed. So it's like the more work you put in up front, the better it pays off on day of production.
So is pre-production a huge part of your process?
Oh, it's huge, especially because when I was doing gaffing, it's a little bit less heavy just on the lighting side. But if I'm the cinematographer, it's like there's a lot at stake and a lot that could go wrong. Like there's a lot of people you got to hire. There's decisions, there's creative choices. And if you don't do all that homework beforehand, you can't expect a good product out of it. You can maybe wing it and get a good enough product. But if you can, whether it's like time allows or budget allows for all of that time or whatever, try to plan ahead.
How often are you taking on new projects, and has YouTube allowed you to be more selective with the projects that you take on?
That is a great question, because it's definitely a balancing act between YouTube and film. And it's this weird divide I've had to learn. But I'm taking on a lot less now, transparently, because YouTube is, I'm lucky enough to have it be such a great continuous source of work. So it allows me to, because like as a DP, sometimes you got to do like the shit jobs to pay the bills, things you hate doing. I don't like to take those on as much. Sometimes I do because I just want to keep pushing myself in this DP space. But instead I can make educational content or repurpose what I'm doing and make my income happen that way. So I'm a little bit more selective with the DP work that comes in. And I think that, you know, it's tough because I always had this feeling of like, oh, well, I'm kind of taking this jack of all trades path of like, if I was full steam into DP work, I'd probably be a lot further along. And if I was full steam into YouTube, I'd be a lot further along. But I don't want to just do YouTube as well. Like my heart wants to be a DP.
I also feel like you need to be still doing the DP work if you're teaching educational content about doing the thing. Like you still got to do the thing to teach about it.
I feel like, yeah, I gotta do it to teach about it for sure. There's a lot of credibility. So it's like, yeah, I don't want to just like, ever since I started, I was like, I don't want to just be a YouTube guy that doesn't do film at all and is teaching film. It kind of sounds counterintuitive.
Yeah.
I mean, if it works for you, fantastic. No judgment, no hate, whatever. But I'm like, for me, I just, that doesn't sit that right with me.
Are you ever bringing on and hiring a BTS person to get footage of you on film, like specifically for YouTube?
Yeah, all the time. As much as I can repurpose, and that's kind of like where that business entrepreneurial mindset came from. It's like, as much as I can capitalize off of a project, I'm going to do that, because I think that came from that point of like, I'm doing everything in my mom's basement every single week, filming a whole set. It's fucking tiring. It sucks. And it's like, you run out of concept. So if it's like, if there's something that's already existing, like Mitch and the Film Lab guys, I was like, hey, I've got this video that I want to do. Can I just team up with you? And I'll just like come out and DP. Don't even pay me. Just like, let me come out, bring BTS, whatever, because it helps me do that. And it kind of kills two birds with the same stone.
Mm-hmm.
And you're making money one way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So it's nice because it's like, it also pushes me to keep doing things just for fun. Like passion projects, I love them. One, because they're a blast, but two, it's because like it's like I'm working indirectly on YouTube via doing a passion project, which I'm so grateful for. It's awesome. I love that I'm able to do that. But yeah, it's like my homies hit me up. They're like, hey, I got this thing. I'm like, can I do YouTube? They're like, hell yeah. And I'm like, all right, let's do it.
What's something underrated that has been a tool in the arsenal for you as a DP? Is it something like a slider? Is it maybe the RS4 Pro? Just a good old fashioned tripod? Like what's something where you're like, man, this just hits every single time and I'm using it every shoot damn near?
There's so
There could be
many
some
things.
totally different than what I stated.
Yeah, because gimbals suck. I hate gimbals.
Small gimbal guy.
Never.
Braden's a really small gimbal guy.
Are you?
Just don't really use them too often.
I don't hate them, but they're difficult. That's not what I would choose. What would I? something that's slept on. Maybe it's because I've got a video coming out about this Monday. It's already out by the time you guys are watching this. Go check it out. Shameless plug. Brady Bessette on YouTube.
Cutting that out.
Yeah, you can cut that. So guys, why did it go to black for like 10 seconds? But a spotlight attachment, like one of those Leco attachments.
I just bought one.
You just bought one. You're gonna
It's
love
gonna
my
come-
video.
it
Then go
comes
check it out
tomorrow.
Monday. It's live right now.
Let's go.
Linked.
But it's so versatile in a lighting sense. I think that's something that's like you can do so much with. So it's like if you got one of those in the truck or whatever, like on your kit, it's so versatile, and it's a great kind of slept on thing. Because when I first saw them, I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, there's only so many times I can paint sunlight onto a wall with a gobo. But then I saw some DPs, like excellent DPs, like Lewis Potts in particular had a couple of videos on it.
I love his videos.
Dude, he's
They're
so
really
cool.
good.
If there's one guy on YouTube I'm a freaking fanboy of, I hope he's watching this. It's him.
We'll send it
Because
to him.
He's so cool. Anyway, I'm not gonna fanboy. I think I'm blushing, but it's the cold, guys. Get over it. But yeah, it's like he did it really cool, like bouncing it into things and controlling your light. And like in this video in particular, I was like making a softbox on a wall where you can't rig up lights because it's like you can't just bolt into sheetrock or whatever in some random person's house. So it's like if you can tape up a muslin or whatever, bounce it into that, then you've got your soft light where you didn't want it. So it's very versatile, and I think slept on because I don't see a ton of people doing it.
Yeah.
But when I do, I'm like, oh, you know,
I'm glad I bought that.
yeah,
So
you'll love it.
You brought up that soft light isn't always the best light.
Yeah.
Can you go into why you feel like that?
Yes, I can go into that. Because soft light sucks. No, I'm kidding. Why did you guys have me on this podcast?
You're doing great.
Yeah, whatever. So I think the one thing I learned as I put on my glove here is cinematography isn't about, like, I think the first couple of years I was like, I got to prove it to myself that everything is beautiful. And I would just make everything as beautiful as possible for no particular reason. But cinematography, I always say, like, kind of in its roots is the art of storytelling visually. So it's like, if I got to tell the story of this really ugly scene or ugly person in like street lights or whatever, or like say Westerns, for example, like I don't want it to just feel beautiful. Like if we don't want that character to look gorgeous or amazing or like a positive, good character, don't paint them in that light, quite literally, no pun intended. But so it's like if you've got a really shitty character or a scary character, whatever, you want to make them look ugly, and hard light can do that. But it's funny because like ugly is a very interesting word at this point, because I'm like, ugly can look so good, but it's because it looks so just rugged or gross or ugly or harsh or whatever.
Is that where that phrase came from? Painted in that light?
Maybe. I think I came up with that.
We'll give it to you.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll give it to you. That's a really good point, though.
That's so funny. I got a question about framing and composition. Is there something that has changed over the years that you're like, I used to really go for this specific frame, and now it just disgusts me, and I'm not liking it, or something that you tend to lean on?
I'm at a weird thing where I just want things to be kind of weird and uncomfortable. I think before I felt like it had to be clean, and kind of like I was subconsciously proving to myself that I was good and professional. And now I'm like, fuck that, let's do something weird. So I'll either like get a wide lens close to a face, or like go Dutch and like change the camera framing or whatever. Just something that almost just doesn't feel like a safety net of a shot. Because I feel like obviously those safety net shots work, but it's like if you can do something, because I maybe as a DP watching films and stuff, I see something weird and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And that's what sticks with me, or it just feels a different way. So I'm kind of in this era of just making compositions a little weirder. I love weird wides.
How wide are we talking? Like 12s or like that too wide? Do you
Give me like it could be good, like 12 to 20 range. That can be fun depending on what the scene is and you know where it's placed. But yeah, I love that kind of weird world.
Do you like being wide open most of the time, or do
No.
you? No,
Dude, this
Do
was the
explain
hardest
more.
thing for me. So if you guys didn't know, I started as a photographer for like, I was freaking 12 years old. Like I've been doing anything camera for a very long time, but first 7 years of this was photography. And what they train you in photography is like, if you're not at like f.2 forever,
it's not sick.
it's not good. So it was the hardest thing of like, I knew it that like in Hollywood or whatever, DPs aren't shooting wide open, but I just couldn't break it, even though I knew like I'm doing it wrong. And a lot of that is like depth. Like you actually don't want it to feel like a green screen every time and just have the background totally blown out. Like I've been shooting at like 5.6 a lot lately, 5.6, 7, whatever, because I like the depth that it's actually giving me, and it's giving me more reach throughout the scene. So yeah, it took me years to break out of this like shallow depth of field thing, which still sometimes I fight it because I like, especially on these like more characteristic lenses or whatever, like say the new Blaze are anamorphics that are like, you stick it wide open and I'm like, nothing is sharp and I love it. Like, this is so cool.
When would you shoot wide open?
Low light is one thing, because yes, it opens it up. So if you're in a dark scene or a night scene, it just helps you out in that aspect. But also, like, say, random story example, like if I just want to be like in your head, like if I'm watching you, the scene's playing out and it's like you're just so stuck up here, and like the world isn't really present, I'm gonna have my lens shallow. So it's like I'm only looking at you and the rest of the world kind of doesn't matter. Versus like if there's a lot of people in the scene, like say people passing by you, whatever, and you want to show the business, maybe you close down because you're going to see all of these people coming through. So just kind of like one example of, you know, you could use it as just putting your viewer in your character's head.
Gotcha. You bring up that you started as a photographer. You've also done a ton of gaffer work, and now you're doing a lot of DP stuff. How important is learning different trades of filmmaking to see success in this industry?
I think it's very important. I think that my early days of photography kind of trained my eye, because I went through like, let me do everything. I did portraits, I did landscape, I did architecture, I did food, I did all these things kind of like because I wanted to, but also just because I knew that it would benefit me, and I knew it was like another thing I needed in my toolkit. So that kind of trained my eye of like lighting, of composition, of camera settings, and like kind of the technical side of things like that, to where that helped me now in my TP space. But also like external lighting and off-camera lighting in photo scared the shit out of me. I never did it because I was a natural light photographer, because I was avoiding lighting at all costs. But then once I got into video and stuff, that's when that changed, and I realized that like I need to understand lighting to be able to shape it and create this story. Cinematography is different than videography, so you're going to be like making the story happen through one of the aspects of lighting. Definitely rambling on this question, but I think that learning lighting helped me as a DP as well, being able to shape that. And I think that there's things of like learning camera department or learning sound, learning how to direct a little bit. I think that all of these things are important. You don't need to be a master at all of that. But even like when you've got a large crew that you're working with, just being able to translate what you want cleanly.
Yeah.
Because if I don't know, I've got a director friend who's absolutely amazing. His name is Byron Shockley, if anybody knows him. He's a legend. But he told me one day, he's like, yeah, man, I'm a director, but I've been like trying to DP more or do this more or whatever, so I can translate to my DPs exactly the vision that I want. And I think that's really cool. It always kind of stuck with me.
I think it's really important to be able to like know how to communicate to all of these different people that are going to be on your set.
Yeah, I know that because I did so much gaffing, like when I am on as a DP and I've got a gaffer, that's like a first time working with them. They're like, oh, you, like I made my life so much easier because I'm like, I want this with that rag or whatever. Let's run with that. And they're like, oh, you know, and it makes it so easy to work with me because I can communicate that. But also to contrast that, I've also had to like let my guard down a little bit and not almost micromanage, because like the project I was on a couple of weeks ago, like my guys were great. They're on huge projects all the time. So I went from having to just like micromanage and say, I want this light there, do that, to them kind of knowing, like just saying what I want and them knowing how to get that.
Give me an example of like telling them what you want. What does that mean exactly?
So say like one sunset scene, I'm like, oh, I want the M40 out there coming through the window, and we're going to bounce it off of Muzz to get a soft return or whatever. And that's like, I want that setup to get the image that I see in my head. But then sometimes that doesn't work, or there's a more efficient way to just get to that. Like instead of just bringing in a whole light to add in more texture in the background or whatever, let's instead reshape the light that we have and try to do that as well. So it's like a good gaffer is there to, you know, help not just listen to you, but say like, oh, actually this is going to work great. Let's do this. And that's one thing that I've had to learn as well. But then there were times when I was like, no, this is exactly what I want. And I would be like, I actually hate what you did. But that's because I'm super picky and I'm way too much of a perfectionist, and I don't know how to like not micromanage just a little bit. But you know, that's my toxicity red flag.
Where do you see the DP work going? Where would you hope it goes?
Bigger. I think that right now, especially with DP stuff, YouTube as well, but I just want to scale larger. I think that I've been on a great thing of like improving my craft. And really diving headfirst into DP work the last few years, to where I just, yes, features with a little star on it because I don't want to be gone all the time, but I definitely want to be shooting features or shorts, anything narrative based, just because I think that that's where like I like my style to really live. But just bigger projects with bigger crew to be able to do more fun things. I think that if I'm not growing, it's not as fun if I'm just doing the same thing. So
Absolutely. I got to pee so bad.
Okay.
that's
Take
okay.
a 5-minute pee break.
I'm down to join you on this adventure.
Yeah, let me just plug my YouTube to you guys. Guys, so my name is Brady. If you guys don't know that, they're both going pee, and I don't really know what's going to come up right now, what I'm saying. But really, I'm just grateful to be here. I think that if you guys aren't watching the 505 pod every single hour of every single day, I don't know what you're doing, because you're doing it wrong, because these guys are amazing and they work so hard. And I'll never tell them to their face that they're doing great work. They're just going to see it when they're cutting through this. But make sure you just, today, if you could do one thing, send this to 2 friends in your contacts. Just be like, hey, Brady's video sucks, but all the other videos are good. Send this to somebody else. And then just spread the love, because that's like, they deserve it. And I'm rambling, so I really hope they're peeing fast, because I'm running out of things to say.
So something that you and Johnny both have in common is that you both dropped out of college.
Haha, yeah. He dropped out of college too?
He did.
Yeah, he did. He said he likes to keep it under the radar, and we just blasted it.
I knew he was cool. See, yes, it's, I'm cramping up. It's cold out here.
It is cool.
Yeah, my mom likes to say that I left my college with an associate's degree, but you can't do shit with an associate's degree, and it was just my general requirements that allowed me to, like, it was pretty much like, with an associate's degree, you can come back with no questions asked. So I was like, you know, fuck it. If this doesn't work out, I guess I've got a safety blanket. But yeah, I definitely left college after 2 years, trying to be a photographer, a wedding photographer at that. Which,
Wow.
Thank God that didn't happen.
Were you super nervous though? Talk me through that point of saying, like, you know what, dude, I'm hating college. Was other people, because you hear, you know, people like, oh, you're dropping out, you're quitting this whole thing, like, you gonna really make it? You know what I mean? What was that kind of inner dialogue going on at that time?
I think it was more so like the financials of it. And I was like, shit, when I was 18 in high school, I didn't realize what a loan was. And now I'm like, shit, if I double this, I'm like twice as much in debt for, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I went for engineering, which college algebra is hard. If you guys didn't know that, engineering is not going to be my thing. So I switched to communications, and still at that, I was like, I don't really know what this $100,000 is going to pay back as if I don't have a direction. So I was like, let me just leave. And I was like, I'll give myself 2 years. Just picked a random thing. I'll give myself 2 years to do something photography based and just see if it works out. So that's kind of like my choice behind it. So I just left, and it was because I loved college. I went to school in South Florida, which is freaking sweet for college. It's like, you got beach and bars. What's not to like?
Come on.
But I think it was like trying to make a smart financial decision of digging myself out of the hole that I think I dug with that, because loans are expensive, and out-of-state loans are more expensive.
Was there a point within that 2-year span of you being like, I'm going to give myself 2 years to make it, that you felt you made the right decision and that you could really make this into your full-time career?
I think at the 2-year mark.
Really?
Because I was I left and I was serving, like I was doing serving jobs and stuff like that, because still had to make money, pay back all those $6 million of loans. But it was getting up on that 2-year mark, that threshold that I gave myself. And I don't think I knew it at the point, but like looking back in hindsight, I was like, oh, that was like 2 years to the date where I got my first like videography or photography job. Because I think it was like a year or a year and a half after that of like, I was kind of just tired of serving, and like my managers were ass, and I was just like, I kind of just don't like this. So I was like, let me just leave and just try to be freelance full-time photographer on my own without anything else. And that's, I think, when things got a lot harder, like financially, because I was like, oh shit, I was doing a lot of like graduation photos and like sorority events through my college network that I'd built, but I was like, this isn't cutting it. So it got kind of scary to where I was like, shit, I'm kind of like, I'm hurting, like I'm struggling. So I was starting to question it kind of closer to that 2-year mark, but then I ended up applying for this marketing job where I was just shooting marketing video and photo for like a lot of like car dealerships and stuff, like super cool at the time. I was shooting like Ferraris and Lamborghinis all the time, where I don't know who trusted a 20-year-old kid to take a key and just say like, yeah, go shoot. Because if you own a car dealership and have people doing that, don't. I wasn't stupid, but I definitely wanted to test out the cars, we'll call it.
You Ferris Bueller'd it.
A little bit. I remember I was in like this Ferrari where I was like race mode, and I was always a car kid in high school, so like I knew how to drive. But like race mode on a Ferrari is a lot different than like race mode on my like 2002 Volkswagen, because I was like, oh shit, it was dry pavement and like got squirrely and stuff, and I was like, I don't have $500,000 to fix what I'm about to do.
You ever put a Jetta in sports mode, dude?
It's just called dumping a clutch and then hoping for the best.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you're going through in your mind during this time? Obviously, you're like, I want to make this work. I see people that are doing it and making it work, but it's just not translating at that exact moment. Like, how did you stay on the path?
Mm-hmm. I think that looking back, and I think in the moment it might not have been exactly this way, but I think that it kind of just felt like part of me knew that it was just going to happen. And I didn't question that. I was just kind of like, I'm doing this, partially because I didn't really know what the other alternative was. I didn't really have another alternative lined up. So I was just kind of like, well, it's going to happen. I don't know when or what. And I didn't like have a plan in my head or a picture of what that path looked like. But I was just doing it, and I was just trying things until I guess it worked. So it was like scary at times, like in that little moment, but I don't think it was something where I was like, oh, should I not do this? It was just like, oh, that's not working. This isn't working.
I think you kind of need that delusional, and I'm not delusional confidence. I don't think that's the right word, because you're clearly super talented. And I think that like you kind of know if you have it in a sense. But we were talking about this yesterday. We were like, I just can't believe we kind of started a podcast from like zero, and it's like we're not nearly where we want it to be, but
it's working.
It's working.
Something's working.
Something's working. And so I think you do kind of need a little bit of, call it delusional confidence, that like I just know that this is going to work out, and I don't really have a plan B, and it's okay because plan A is going to work.
Yeah, and I think I implement that now, and like maybe it's a sense of like self-manifesting or whatever, however you want to say it, but it's just like I'm just always like, I think I've proved it to myself in the past years. It's like, as long as I like want this, like it's gonna happen, and I don't question any other way. Like I've been doing that a lot lately. It's like we're planning for a film that's happening right now, literally yesterday, where it's gonna need a lot of money. It's gonna be probably the biggest project that I've done and produced to date. But I was talking with my other friend on it, and he was like, well, I'm kind of worried about logistics and budget. And I was like, honestly, I have full confidence that we're going to get this X amount of money. And he was like, seriously? I was like, yeah, like it'll work. Like I have no idea how, because I'm like, it's a fucking lot of money. but like I was like, if we want to shoot the film, it'll happen. We'll make it work. So I think that exercising that kind of delusional confidence is what can separate you from like taking those couple like safety steps back.
Yeah. Do you manifest it all, or do you write down the things that you want it to happen?
My girlfriend says I do. I think I just like, I don't do it in the way that I should, of like writing it in a journal or whatever. I'm just like, yeah, I want to do this. And my girlfriend's like, how do you always like make this shit happen? And I'm like, I don't know, I'll just say it, and like some way it'll like fall in my lap, or make like I've got to make it work or whatever. But
comes to fruition.
Maybe it's delusional. I don't know. Maybe it's not actually happening. Maybe I'm just like that lost in the world.
He's that delusional.
Yeah.
He thinks it's actually working, but it's not.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I just crossed 200,000 subscribers. And they're like, dude, this is 36. Why is this kid here?
Manifestation, baby. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
You've been able to position yourself now where you're in a place of being able to DP films and go from kind of like filming the videos that you were doing and going from videographer to, you know, proper DP cinematographer working on these films. So for somebody listening who wants to take that leap from quote unquote videographer to like proper film DP cinematographer, what advice would you have for them to be able to get on big sets like you are doing now and position themselves as a proper DP?
I say it a lot. I'll say it again. It's not new information, but I think it's the most important to hear. And it's like, build your network of friends and just homies that you want to do cool shit with, and also put the pride aside of like, either you need to be like I won't do free work or whatever because I'm finally making money. Like I do free work all the time just because it's fun, but like this like pride and also like self-consciousness, I guess, of like just put all that aside, and like it doesn't matter where you're at, what you're doing. I think that as long as you're just doing things, like you're gonna end up looking back on that ladder and be like, oh shit, I'm actually further than I used to be and I didn't even notice. So just like build your network and just keep kind of your head down and forward. I think it'll happen as long as you delusionally manifest that it's gonna happen.
Fuck yeah. Were you I'm losing track because I feel like we've been talking to so many people on the phone lately, but were you the one who said you threw out your timeline?
throughout my timeline.
Who are we
No,
talking
it
to
wasn't
about
me.
this?
It's Johnny.
Oh no, Mark Bone. It was Mark.
It was
Oh.
Mark.
It was Mark.
So an
I'm
actual
sorry.
insightful podcast.
But I think it kind of lines up. Like something that Mark said on his podcast was he threw out the timeline, and it's kind of like everybody's timeline is different, but kind of like you're saying, putting the ego aside and not being afraid to do free work, and you'll make it.
And I think that's super, in a sense, also hypocritical for me to say, because I compare myself to every single person that exists, and I'm like, well, they're doing this, and like I forget that I'm doing like equal amount of shit. But it's just like it's like this mixed sense of FOMO and self-conscious thinking of like, oh well, I'm not doing that. I need to be doing that, and then it's like, oh wait, I need to shake that.
You brought something up earlier that I kind of want to go back to, because I feel like when we sit down at the end of the day, there's always something that we can do, especially since I've quit my job. It's like I sit down, I'm like, damn, this list is never ending. It just keeps getting longer, and I have to keep chipping away at said things. I kind of get anxiety sometimes about it, and then I feel like I start to lose sleep, and I forget like the things that I'm supposed to do to just keep my sanity. And you brought up earlier about how, you're not doing YouTube every week because you're prioritizing like your mental health. Mm-hmm. And has there been time periods during this journey of going off on your own that you have had to kind of check yourself and say like, yo, I need to relax, or I need to do these things again? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that it's something that I'm trying to implement more, and discipline myself less as far as like needing to work, because I feel like I'm a workaholic that doesn't realize he's a workaholic, because I always feel like I've got to be doing something. So I think that I started to do it a couple of years ago when I got really, really busy coming up on the holidays. I was gone all the time. I was traveling, I was doing things, whatever. And I was kind of like, oh, I need to just stop. And that can be okay. I'm just going to stop for a month, which ended up turning into like 3 months off of work because I broke my collarbone snowboarding first year in Utah when they got the most snow that was ever on record in Utah for snow. Doesn't matter.
You okay now?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. No, I'm great. But I think that it's something that like if I'm feeling swamped and like just foggy mentally or not creative or just burnt out, it's like I can just not do it, and nobody's gonna yell at me. Nobody's gonna like, I'm not gonna get any backlash for it, and I always come back a little bit stronger. So I think that putting that discipline aside, that I was so hard on myself, even still now, I'm like trying to get 2 videos out next week or whatever. And then it'll be Wednesday and I'm like, I got to stay up till 3 a.m. tonight to get this done. And I'm like, why do I need to do 2 videos this week? And it's like just this own thing that I put over my head. And I'm like, nobody's going to know if I just do it Monday and then extend everything a little bit more. So it's like just letting myself kind of do that and like feel into like where I'm at with my workload instead of just drowning myself in unnecessary stress, I think is really, really important.
I think there's seasons too. I think there's seasons of like, let me put my head down and grind. Mm-hmm. And let me like really get myself to the next level, and then recognizing when you do need a break and taking a season of it's okay to maybe not work as hard now. Oh, yeah. And I feel like we have this fear of like falling behind or becoming like people are going to forget about us or becoming irrelevant, or like if I take a month off of YouTube, when I come back, no one's going to care. And it's just like, it's not the case.
There's definitely waves to it for sure. Cause there's, like you said, like there's those plateau periods where I'm like, I feel like I've done nothing. And then like that kind of builds out and it has this kind of like stagnant nature to it. Then where I'm like, oh shit, wait, I want to do something. And then a start. And then like, I don't know how the universe makes it happen, but it just all hits at once. And it's like, you're doing this or whatever. Like from Condo. Yeah. I was gone up until like mid-October of just nonstop things, nonstop like fun projects, to where I was like, okay, I had that period. Now, hopefully, knock on wood, I can slow down into the holidays and go on to that like kind of, I guess like reflective state. Sure. Of like, okay, that was great. I had fun. What could I do better? What's next? All of that.
It kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of like boredom. Yeah. Of like having those seasons of not as much work to be able to reflect on what you've done, have you liked it, and how do you want to pursue your career moving forward.
Mm-hmm. I think I've done a lot of that in the last year, is because like I had those boredom periods, and even like when I was doing gaffing a lot, because I love lighting, there was a point where like everybody was like, you're the gaffer, and I was like, wait, no shit, I wanted to be a DP. So it was kind of like one of those reflective points that kind of I sat and I was like, wait, so how am I going to do this? And I had an amazing DP friend up in Toronto. He was like, if you want a DP, stop gaffing. And I was like, but that's work. But then it kind of sat with me in like those reflective points, and I was like, maybe I should just turn down more gaffing jobs and just see what happens. And then like my DP work started coming more, and I did cooler things, and people were like, oh, we want you to DP, we don't want you to gaff. And it kind of like set me forward in that. And that's kind of just what I've been working on, at least right now.
What are you hoping to take into 2025? What are you hoping? Where do we go? What direction? With YouTube, with the DP work?
I think that with DP work, I think I'm on that right now, where I think evolving a lot with my style, and like switching over from that kind of like budget indie small man thing to like, I want to be doing these bigger projects. And I think that I think just coming over the crest of seeing that in the distance. So I want to take that wave and just keep going with it. But then with YouTube stuff, I've been at a point where I really want to build back that personality. That's kind of been this long thing going on of like, I was so just like bland. I think it a lot, just like giving education, because I was like, nobody cares about you, Brady. But I've been trying to switch that over and just make it more of a fun place to be, instead of just like going there for like a one light tutorial tip, which, don't get me wrong, I love education. It's very rewarding and it helps me also learn. But sometimes I just want to be me and just not teach how to do things with one light forever.
That's kind of what we're trying to do with the vlog too, and like do other YouTube stuff, is like trying to balance like giving out educational content, and at the end of the day, like that's what this whole podcast is about, is like trying to bring creators as much value as possible. But we also, me and Braden, want to bring more of our personality into our videos.
And I think that viewers are loving that right now. People are just getting back to these day in the life vlogs of just like watching people just do things. And it's kind of like we went to that dull period where it was like overdone and then it disappeared for a little while. But I think we're back at it where people just want to like hang out and just watch what you're doing, and just like feel like you're in the room with them. So I think that trying to evolve into that is important for me, because I've been doing YouTube, like I'm not like one of the new guys anymore. I've been doing it for 4 years. So it's like, that's a lot of time for YouTube to change. So it's trying to like evolve with the times is also something to keep in mind of, because there's so many of these newer guys, like year-old on YouTube, just fucking killing it, who are just like very familiar with the trends and the ways. And I'm like, I feel like I'm new watching them do things differently. It's really interesting. Like some of my friends, like Cam, Mackie, and Kofi, your boy, he's like, they're killing it. They're doing so much cool stuff. And I'm like, wait, I see what you guys are doing is working now. I kind of like take some of that. And I'm like, just because I'm at where I'm at doesn't mean that I can just coast for forever.
Do you watch a lot of YouTube?
No, dude, I'm terrible.
Really?
I'm so bad. I don't watch shit for YouTube. No.
Do you watch Netflix at all, or no?
I watch Netflix more than I do YouTube. I think that YouTube turns into like this big comparison thing for me, to where I'm like, it's almost like just, if I watch YouTube, I'm just going to take what people are doing, and I don't think I want to do that. Like I don't know where I heard it along the way, but like Taylor Swift apparently doesn't listen to music because she just makes her own, like she feels like if she listens to it, I don't know the truth on this. I think I just heard it through somebody that heard it, whatever. But it's like, if you're listening to all this music, you're going to take things from that and it becomes less of your own.
Chase literally just had a quote on our last pod where he was saying his advice to like a beginner filmmaker would not be to go out with a bunch of other filmmakers and shoot stuff, because then you all end up getting kind of the same stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, just go out in isolation and film stuff and kind of see what you come back with.
I heard Drake also does that.
Really?
I think it was like Drewski talking about hanging out with Drake, and he was surprised that Drake doesn't listen to music in the car.
Really?
And I also heard, I watched an interview of Jack Harlow talk about that. They asked him like, oh, what kind of like music are you listening to? He's like, dude, I'm working on an album. I'm listening to fucking music like in the studio for 10 to 12 hours a day.
So you don't want to listen to
I want to sit in silence.
Yeah, that's really true. I don't watch a lot of movies. Like I'm kind of terrible with that, and I think it's like, I hate to say it, but people are like, who are your DPs or whatever? Like, what are films? And I'm like, shit, I don't know. Like I see things that I like, but I don't binge watch a lot of things, which I think it's a double-edged sword, because there's the aspect of like, yes, I'm not going to take and compare and try to just copy and paste, but also it's kind of healthy to see what else is out in the world, because I'll watch things and I'll be like, oh wait, I kind of like that, and then like that's all I just take from it and whatever. But it goes both ways.
Do you draw inspiration from non-movies, non-TV shows to bring into your films?
I think that I see a lot of inspiration in like natural life. Just like if I'm just like hanging out with people and I'll just like look at either the way, especially with lighting, I'll do this. It's like the way that light's going to render naturally. Because what we want to do is just, natural light's beautiful as long as it's in the right place. So if I see it and I like it, I'm kind of like, oh, I'll just break it down in a sense of like, what would that look like? Like, what are the like tones or whatever, like direction, where I could say like, there's cool light coming on your shadow side of your face, but there's warm bounce coming from that sun. How would I recreate that in a scene that I want to? And then kind of get inspiration that way. So it's almost just taking little aspects of it that I like, instead of just being like, they did that because it looks good.
I got one more for you to take us home, okay? This has been a super fun conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about your life, the way you look at things. If you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self before you went off to school, before you went on this DP journey, moved out here to Utah, what would your advice be?
See, that's tough because I'm happy with where it's all at right now. And I think that everything did happen for a reason. Like I went to college to network and learn how to like build a community that way. So I don't regret wasting $1 zillion at college. But I think that the biggest thing is like I think that because I started so young, that this is what it'll be. Since I started so young, especially like shooting weddings at like 16, like everyone looks down at you like you're a freaking kid. And I'm like, that kind of set me back to have this kind of kid mindset of like, oh, I'm good for a 16-year-old, or I'm good for a 17-year-old or whatever, instead of just being like, I'm good. So it kind of like was this little fallback cushion of like, oh, I'm good enough for where I'm supposed to be at right now. Or like I'll hold myself back, or of like, I'm not going to take that project because that's something that somebody who's like 30 and professional would do. Instead, I'm just 21 and a kid. So that kind of held me back a little bit. And I think that just had I put that aside and just kind of went full steam ahead and had that confidence, it could maybe put me at a further place than I'm at now.
So you're saying if you had a different mindset, maybe people would be calling you like a prodigy? Is that where you're
I
going?
wouldn't go that far. I think that if you take
this 16-year-old prodigy wedding filmmaker,
maybe somebody else in those shoes, sure.
I'm just fucking.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to another episode of the 505 podcast. Check out Brady's channel down below. Go give him a follow on Instagram, and we'll see you guys all next week. Peace.
Peace.